The vast emptiness of space stretched before the exploration vessel horizon, its sleek metallic hull cutting through the darkness like a silver arrow. Captain Park Yoon-ji stood at the main observation deck, her eyes scanning the unfamiliar planetary landscape below. The planet Kepler 732d looked nothing like the standard reconnaissance reports had suggested. Jagged rock formations rose like teeth from a landscape painted in shades of deep purple and midnight blue. Bioluminescent plants flickered with an eerie, pulsing light that seemed to breathe with an alien rhythm. The atmospheric sensors blinked softly, indicating breathable air with trace elements unlike anything in the known galactic catalogs. "Prepare landing protocols," Yoon-ji called to her team. Her voice was calm, almost musical against the soft hum of the ship's internal systems. Kim Jae-sung, the mission's xenobiologist, began running final checks on their environmental suits. The landing module detached from the horizon with a gentle burst of stabilization thrusters. As they descended, the team noticed something unusual. Movement. Not the gentle sway of alien vegetation, but something more deliberate. Something alive. At first it was just a shadow, a ripple in the crystalline underbrush that didn't match any known biological pattern. Jae-sung's initial scans showed impossible readings. A life form that seemed to exist between states of matter, with biological signatures that defied current scientific understanding. Then it emerged. The Shadow Claw was unlike anything humanity had ever encountered. It moved with a grace that suggested both absolute predatory efficiency and an almost impossible intelligence. Its body seemed to shift between solid and something almost transparent, with multiple sensory appendages that could slice through solid metal in milliseconds. Most species would have immediately activated defensive protocols. Most would have prepared to fight or flee. Yoon-ji did neither. Her hand moved slowly, almost imperceptibly. She removed her helmet, an action so unexpected that Jae-sung nearly shouted in protest. The oxygen mix was technically breathable, but the risk was astronomical. The Shadow Claw stopped. Every muscle in the creature's body, if one could call it muscles, became absolutely still. Its multiple sensory organs focused entirely on the human captain. Where other species saw a threat, Yoon-ji saw something more. She saw a living being. A soft sound escaped her lips. Not a word, not a command, just a breath. A connection that transcended language, technology, or evolutionary barriers. The creature tilted its head. An impossibly complex series of movements suggested something between curiosity and recognition. Jae-sung's monitoring equipment went wild, recording data that would take years to analyze. Minutes passed, or perhaps hours. Time seemed to lose. Meaning in that moment of first contact, Yoon-ji's team watched in complete silence. Their captain stood with her hand extended, not as a threat, not as a weapon, but as a bridge between two completely different forms of existence. The Shadow Claws, multiple appendages shifted. Not an attack. Something closer to communication. Nobody on the team would be able to explain exactly what happened in those moments. The recordings would be studied, analyzed, and debated across hundreds of worlds. But something fundamental had changed. First contact was never supposed to look like this. The planet's surface continued to pulse with its strange bioluminescent light. The Shadow Claw remained still, its entire being focused on the human captain who had done the impossible. She had seen beyond the threat. She had recognized a being. As the first rays of the planet's twin suns began to break over the rocky horizon, Captain Park Yoon-ji took a single step forward. The Shadow Claw matched her movement, perfectly synchronized. Something remarkable was about to begin. The universe held its breath. The communication between Captain Park Yoon-ji and the Shadow Claw defied every known protocol of first contact. Jae-sung watched in disbelief as the creature moved closer, its body shifting between solid and ethereal states. Each movement was calculated, precise, almost like a complex dance of mutual understanding. The team's communication devices went crazy. Random signals burst through the systems, creating a symphony of electronic chaos. But Yoon-ji remained calm. Her hand, still extended, showed no sign of fear or tension. The Shadow Claw's sensory appendages began to pulse with a soft blue light. Instead of looking threatening, it seemed almost curious. Jae-sung's scientific brain struggled to process what he was witnessing. No predator in recorded galactic history had ever displayed such complex behavioral patterns. Suddenly, the creature did something completely unexpected. It mirrored Yoonji's hand position, not as an attack, but as a gesture of communication. The team's breathing stopped. This was beyond scientific understanding. Yoonji spoke softly, not words of human language, but a series of controlled breath sounds. The Shadow Claw responded with similar rhythmic pulses. Something was happening that no training manual could explain. Minutes passed. The planet's strange atmosphere hummed with an electric tension. Rocks around them seemed to vibrate with an unseen energy. Jae-sung's monitoring equipment captured data that would revolutionize xenobiology forever. The creature moved closer. One step, then another. But there was no threat in its movement. Something more complex was emerging. A connection that went beyond physical boundaries. Yoonji's team remained frozen. Their training suggested combat or retreat. But their captain demonstrated something entirely different. Understanding, respect, communication that didn't rely on weapons or technology. The Shadow Claw's multiple sensory organs began creating intricate light patterns, blues, purples, colors that seemed to shift between visible and invisible spectrums. Jae-sung realized they were witnessing a form of communication more advanced than any known language. One of the junior team members dropped a small device. The sound should have triggered a defensive response. But the Shadow Claw merely shifted its attention momentarily, then returned to its complex interaction with Yoonji. Something extraordinary was happening. A predator known for destroying entire planetary ecosystems was engaging in what could only be described as a diplomatic exchange. The captain's background in xenopsychology became evident. Every movement, every breath was calculated. She wasn't trying to control the creature. She was trying to understand it. Hours passed. The planet's twin suns moved across the strange purple sky. The Shadow Claw remained, its massive form a stark contrast to the human captain's smaller figure. But there was no sense of threat, only a profound sense of mutual curiosity. Jae-sung's recordings would later show something unprecedented. The Shadow Claw was learning, adapting, responding to human communication patterns in real time. As darkness began to fall, the creature did something that would shock the entire galactic scientific community. It produced a low, melodic sound. Not a threat, not an attack. Something closer to communication. Yoonji responded. Her voice carried the same rhythmic quality. The universe seemed to pause. Two completely different species were speaking. Not with words, not with technology, but with something far more profound. Understanding. The Horizon's communication systems continued to pulse with strange signals, data that would take years to decode, evidence of a moment that would change everything humans knew about intelligent life. As night covered the alien landscape, the Shadow Claw and the human captain remained connected. Two beings from different worlds finding a language beyond language. Something remarkable was happening. The Galactic Council chamber fell silent when the first transmission arrived. Holographic displays flickered with impossible imagery. A human captain standing next to the most dangerous known predator in the universe, and neither seemed threatened. Captain Park Yoonji's report was minimal, just a few lines that would change everything. The aliens leaned forward, their multiple sensory organs processing the data with growing confusion. Communication is not about speaking, her report read. It's about listening. Jae-sung's scientific documentation told a stranger story. The Shadow Claw wasn't just a creature. It was a complex being with communication patterns more advanced than most intelligent species. Its body could create light frequencies that carried more information than human language could ever express. The creature had learned to understand human gestures within hours. Not through aggression or scientific instruments, but through observation and something closer to empathy. During the next planetary rotation, strange things began happening. The Shadow Claw started mimicking team members' movements, not as a threat, but as a form of learning. It would watch a human pick up a tool and then perfectly replicate the action with its own appendages. Yunji discovered that the creature responded to emotional states more than verbal commands. Calm produced cooperation, tension created distance. It was learning human emotional landscapes faster than any known species. The monitoring systems captured everything: light patterns, molecular shifts, biological responses that defied current scientific understanding. When the first transmission reached the Galactic Council, they were stunned. The most feared predator in the known universe was now studying humans like a curious child. It didn't want to destroy. It wanted to understand. Diplomatic teams began requesting access to the mission logs. Research institutions offered massive funding to study this unprecedented interaction. The Shadow Claw was transforming from a threat to a potential ally. Jae Sung's initial fear had transformed into pure scientific excitement. Every moment brought new discoveries. The creature could communicate complex ideas through light pulses, body movements, and something that felt almost like emotional resonance. The planet itself seemed to react to their presence. Bioluminescent plants would change colors when the Shadow Claw moved. Rock formations would subtly shift, as if the entire ecosystem was part of a larger, more complex communication network. Yunji discovered that direct eye contact wasn't threatening to the creature. Instead, it was an invitation to deeper understanding. Where other species saw a monster, she saw an intelligent being trying to connect. The Galactic Council's initial panic slowly transformed into curiosity. How could a single human team achieve what centuries of scientific exploration had failed to do? The answer was surprisingly simple: respect, patience, the willingness to see beyond immediate threat. As days passed, the Shadow Claw began showing protective behaviors towards the human team. It would move ahead of them during planetary explorations, scanning for potential dangers. It demonstrated an understanding of group dynamics that surpassed most known intelligent species. Jae Sung's research suggested that the creature's communication was holistic, not just verbal or physical, but involving entire molecular structures. Each movement carried multiple layers of meaning. The universe was watching. Millions of species tracked the mission logs, waiting to understand what was happening on this remote planetary system. A predator and humans were creating something entirely new, a language beyond words, a connection beyond science. Something magical was happening, and nobody knew exactly what would happen next. The Shadow Claw looked at Yunji. She looked back. No words were needed. The Galactic Council chamber buzzed with tension. Holographic displays showed Captain Park Yunji standing before hundreds of alien representatives, the Shadow Claw silently positioned beside her. No weapons, no shields, just pure communication. Delegates from 100 worlds watched in stunned silence. Some had fur, some had multiple limbs, some existed as pure energy. But all shared one emotion: complete disbelief. Jae Sung's preliminary research. Documents lay scattered across digital interfaces. Each page revealed something more extraordinary than the last. The Shadow Claw wasn't just a creature. It was an intelligent being with complex communication patterns that defied current scientific understanding. "We came not to conquer," Yunji began, her voice calm and steady, "but to understand." The creature beside her pulsed with soft blue light. Not a threat, not an attack. Something closer to agreement. Alien diplomats leaned forward. Their translation devices struggled to process the interaction. How could a species known for destruction now appear as a potential ally? The holographic presentation showed moments from their planetary expedition. The Shadow Claw protecting human researchers, helping them navigate dangerous terrain, communicating through complex light and molecular patterns that suggested intelligence far beyond previous assumptions. One Zircon delegate, known for their extremely analytical approach, spoke first. "Explain the communication protocol." Yunji, smiled. There is no protocol, only understanding. The shadow claw moved slightly, its multiple sensory appendages creating intricate light patterns. The translation systems went crazy, producing a mixture of emotional and scientific data that suggested complex emotional intelligence. Research teams from across the galaxy began requesting mission logs. Universities offered massive research grants. Military strategists saw potential beyond simple exploration. Something fundamental was changing. The creature that had destroyed entire planetary ecosystems was now showing signs of cooperative behavior. It wasn't just learning human communication. It was creating a new form of interaction that transcended species boundaries. Jae Sung's research suggested that the Shadow Claw's communication involved entire molecular structures. Each movement carried multiple layers of meaning. It could express complex ideas through light, movement, and something closer to emotional resonance. The Galactic Council's initial fear slowly transformed into curiosity. How could a single human team achieve what centuries of scientific exploration had failed to do? Diplomatic channels began lighting up. Species that had never spoken to each other were now discussing the human-shadow claw interaction. What seemed impossible was becoming a new reality. The planetary exploration team became instant celebrities. Their mission logs were studied, analyzed, and debated across multiple star systems. Yoonji remained humble. "We didn't do anything special," she told the council. "We simply listened." The shadow claw pulsed in agreement, a gesture that spoke volumes without using a single word. Military strategists saw potential beyond exploration. A creature capable of destroying entire ecosystems was now showing signs of being a potential ally. Defensive capabilities combined with intelligent communication could change galactic dynamics forever. Research institutions began requesting genetic samples. Communication specialists wanted to understand the complex interaction protocols. Every moment of the mission became a potential breakthrough in understanding interspecies communication. The universe was watching. Millions of species tracked the mission logs, waiting to understand what was happening. A predator and humans were creating something entirely new. A language beyond words. A connection beyond science. As the Galactic Council session continued, something magical was happening. Boundaries were dissolving. Understanding was emerging. The Shadowclaw looked at Yoonji. She looked back. No words were needed. The stars seemed different now. Brighter, more alive. 5 years after the first encounter, humanity had transformed. The Shadowclaw was no longer a creature to be feared, but a partner in galactic exploration. Captain Park Yoonji stood on the bridge of the new exploration vessel, her silent companion, shifting beside her. Diplomatic missions had changed completely. Where once humans carried weapons, they now carried understanding. The Shadowclaw had become more than a creature. It was a symbol of what communication could truly mean. Alien civilizations began requesting human communication specialists. Universities developed entire departments dedicated to studying the human-Shadowclaw interaction. What had started as a simple planetary expedition had rewritten the rules of galactic engagement. Jae Sung, now lead researcher of the Interspecies Communication Institute, discovered something remarkable. The Shadowclaw's communication method wasn't just complex. It was revolutionary. They could process emotional and scientific information simultaneously, in ways no known species could comprehend. Military strategies transformed overnight. Defensive protocols that had existed for thousands of years became obsolete. The most feared predator in the universe was now helping protect planetary systems, not destroy them. The Galactic Council meetings looked different now. Where once there were tense negotiations, now there was genuine dialogue. The Shadowclaw would pulse, with light communicating complex ideas that translation systems struggled to capture. Yoonji had become more than a captain. She was a bridge between worlds. Her ability to communicate without words had inspired an entire generation of explorers. Researchers discovered that the Shadowclaw's molecular structure could adapt to different planetary environments almost instantly. What was once seen as a threat was now a potential solution to multiple galactic challenges. Exploration teams began including Shadowclaw members as standard procedure. Their ability to detect potential dangers and communicate complex environmental information made them invaluable. The first joint human Shadowclaw research station was established on a remote planetary system. Scientists from hundreds of worlds watched in amazement as two completely different species worked together with perfect synchronization. Political boundaries began to blur. The traditional understanding of threat and cooperation was being rewritten. Humans had shown that communication was about listening, not controlling. Planetary defense systems that had existed for millennia became obsolete. The most dangerous creature in the universe was now helping protect vulnerable populations. Yunji often remembered that first moment on the alien planet. A simple breath. A moment of understanding. Something that had changed everything. The Shadowclaw moved beside her, its multiple sensory appendages creating complex light patterns. Communication had become something more than language. It was a living, breathing connection that transcended physical boundaries. Galactic trade routes opened. Species that had never spoken to each other began finding common ground. The human approach to communication became a standard study in diplomatic academies across multiple star systems. Something fundamental had changed in the universe. Fear was being replaced by understanding. Threat was transforming into cooperation. The Horizon, hoisted their original exploration vessel, now stood as a museum piece, a reminder of how a single moment of genuine connection could change everything. Young explorers studied the mission logs. They learned that true communication wasn't about weapons or technology. It was about seeing the intelligence in every living being. Yunji looked out at the stars. The Shadowclaw pulsed softly beside her. No words were needed. They had created something new, a cosmic order built on understanding. Where once there was fear, now there was hope. The universe watched and waited. Something beautiful was happening.